the Young Minds Podcast. We're in episode 20, and this one was a really special episode, not just for me, but also just Northside. It is not a pastor, like it has been in the past, but it is the pastor's wife, so Pastor Robby's wife, Miss Laura Foster, and this one was a really exciting episode, because we dive into her role in Northside, as well as all the stuff that Northside has been able to do, that the Lord's allowed Northside to do with D Now and the Bible Conference, which I would do an episode on later, more in depth, but you will get to hear our thoughts and reactions to the things that have been going on these past last 2 weekends. And without further ado, I want to introduce you to Northside's pastor's wife, Miss Laura Foster. Alright, welcome to the podcast. I guess you could say, ma'am. At this point, I have not said that yet, and that's because we have the first female guest on today. But if you wanted to introduce yourself and tell everybody what you're about, that'd be great.
Okay, my name is Laura Foster. I am the pastor's wife at Northside. Robby and I have just celebrated our 39th wedding anniversary.
Woo! Congratulations.
39 years. So it's been a great ride with him, and it's been... we're in that sweet time of our life now, but we've got 2 children that are grown, have their own families, and so we're empty nesters, and we are loving life.
Well, you seem like you do. I mean, every time we see you, you really, y'all both just seem like you enjoy life so much. So like, as your testimony, as far as that goes, like, if you want to go into that,
Okay. Well, I was saved at the age of 12, and I grew up in a very moral family, and my parents both were Christians, but my family was very involved in baseball. So baseball kept us from being in church very often, but again, a very moral family. We knew what was right and what was wrong. And so at the age 12, I gave my life to Christ, and that night I was baptized and had every desire of following the Lord. And I had the concept, though, of the Lord as God was in heaven, I'm here on earth, and one day I'll be in heaven with Him, so just do the best you can until you get there. And so I was not discipled as I should have been. Again, being from a family that we were not continually in church, I did not grow in my discipleship. So at the age of 23, God was doing a huge work in Robby and my life at that time. And we had our daughter was 2 years old. And his sister had asked us. We got married at the age of 19. And we were just living life as a young married couple. Had our daughter. She was 2. And my sister-in-law asked if she could take Tiffany to church. And Robby and I both looked at each other and said, nobody's going to carry our children to church. We will carry them to church. And we knew that was the right thing to do. So at that time, God just began stirring in both Robby and my life. And at that time, we surrendered truly. We were saved, but surrendered to His lordship in our life. He's always been Lord, but I didn't, for sure, did not allow Him to be Lord of my life. I did not surrender everything to Him. And so we just both at that time just said, okay, God, whatever you want to do in our lives, that's what we want you to do. And so maybe a year later, I was probably 24, I did a study, and it was the Experiencing God study. And it's one of the most life-changing Bible studies I've ever done. And through that study, I learned that God wanted a personal relationship with me. That it wasn't God was in heaven, I was here, do the best you can. But He truly wanted to have a personal, intimate relationship with me. So at that moment, when that truth finally resonated in my life, my whole life and my whole journey with the Lord has changed since then.
That's great. That's awesome. And I'm kind of backtracking a little bit, but I was curious about how in the world, how did you and Pastor Robby meet?
Okay, do you want Pastor Robby's story or you want the truth?
Yours.
So, my sister-in-law is his first cousin. And so we were graduating high school, and she had asked me, did I want to ride with her up to his house to take his graduation gift? And I was like, sure, I'll ride with you. And so we met. So, of course, he likes to tell everybody I came to his house looking for him. But that's truly why I was there. And so we knew the next week we both were going to be on our graduation trips at the same place. And he said, well, maybe we'll see each other. I was like, yeah, okay. He was the first person I saw when I got to Daytona. And so he asked me out that night, and we went to eat at Red Lobster and started dating from then.
Surprised it wasn't a barbecue place from Pastor Randy said. So what was your first impression of when you and Pastor Robby, when you walked through Northside's doors, like, what was your first impression of Northside, because they were obviously looking for another pastor.
Right. Well, we were truly seeking the Lord where he wanted us to be at. And we had been coming as the church had started talking with Robby about possibly coming to be the pastor here. He and I had driven down a couple of times and just ridden through Valdosta just to see if God put a burden in our heart for the city. And as soon as we got here, we were like, this place is unique. We really knew, we felt like God was really calling us here. And so we had really been seeking, Lord, you show us where you want us to be at. And so when we got here, he just confirmed it in our life. And I could tell you 100 things that happened that we knew without a doubt. But when God called Robby to pastor Northside, we had absolutely no doubt it was where God was leading us.
And, I know that everybody at Northside just loves the both of you so much.
Thank you. We love our church dearly.
Yeah. And that Bible conference, and we'll get more into that later, but whoa, wow. I was mind blown by just all, because I saw some of the numbers and all as they were being released from here. 1,200 people were worshiping, and then 29 people went forward to be baptized, in 3 days. And I was like,
right.
Goodness.
Well, I think that it's a total of 40 baptisms through the whole time. We've already had 11, and I think we've got, I think that's what Robby had said. But on Sunday morning, we had 1,263 on campus. So just phenomenal. The whole weekend was just phenomenal.
It really was.
You just couldn't. I don't know that you really can put words to what the weekend was.
I was trying to find the words too. I was like, what? I was like, I guess the one word I can say is wow. I don't, but I don't know if there's a word to really describe, what was going on.
But you see the post of people, and when you really know that you've experienced God's presence, you see all the posts on Facebook, how God truly ministered to so many people.
Oh, yeah.
And it was only the Lord. Only the Lord.
Yeah. And, my mom, she took that picture without me knowing, but, when I went down and asked for Pastor Robby, to pray with him, and, I'll never forget that. That's always going to be, in my heart. I'm so glad she took it, even though I had no idea she did. She's like, look at this picture I took of the two of you. I'm like, you were so sneaky. You had to, but that was just so sweet. There's because there was so much going on. Everybody was, either talking up on stage or they were starting to leave the sanctuary, and then there's just us in the middle by the altar, just praying.
God ordained moment, wasn't it? That was awesome.
And so what because I was curious about this when I wrote it. What are your certain responsibilities here at Northside that you do?
Well, right now, I feel like the Lord has really pressed upon me that I am to be the pastor's wife here. That I am truly to minister to Robby as the pastor here with as much the growth that we've had. And I just need to be his helpmate. And I just need to be beside him. And so that's my first and foremost obligation. My first ministry is to my family. Yeah. And then secondly, I'm his wife, the pastor's wife. And then I love greeting. That's one of my favorite things to me. That's not a job. It is a joy. That is just something I've always loved doing. Just meeting people and talking to people. I love that.
And I know people that, when that one time you were sick, I bet people were like, where's she at? Like, we need our greeter.
Well, I'm glad I was missed.
Yeah. So, this was one thing that I was trying to figure out how to phrase it. But, in terms of, how has being the pastor's wife affected how you, if you see people that, outside of church, how do you, interact with them? I don't want to say, deal with them, but, interact with them and just things of this world. How do you interact with it?
One thing I say a lot, Charlie, and I mean this of what I'm saying. A lot of times I'm introduced as the pastor's wife, and I love saying I'm really Laura.
Yeah.
So it's not the title. I don't want the title. I'm me. I'm who God has created me to be. And again, going back from my upbringing, being a great moral family, but my parents were givers. They loved people. They helped. I could tell you story after story of people through the years that it didn't matter where the people came from, what they looked like. They just loved people. And that was what was instilled in me. My dad's favorite saying that he always says, and it always stays in the back of my mind, is if you do not have something nice to say about somebody, don't say anything at all.
Yeah.
And that is that is a principle that he placed in my life. And every time the enemy wants to get me, that saying always comes up. If you don't have something nice to say, don't say anything at all.
Because as humans, that's hard to do.
Yeah, and when you see people that live in the world, Charlie, and maybe don't have a relationship with the Lord, I always want to love them more because I want to love them to Christ. I'm not here to make judgment on anybody. I would be first the one that there could be judgment too, because we are all sinners. But that is just something that Robby and I both can truly say we love people, whether they're at Northside or whether they are not.
And that shows, I will say.
Well, thank you. Well, thank you.
And, this was one thing some of these questions I was very interested in because, I haven't heard as much about, you, so I was very interested about all these questions. Have you ever worried, about Pastor Robby and Pastor Josh's safety at Northside if they're doing a sermon or, on missions, because I know that can be a dangerous, especially missions.
Right.
Well,
yes and no.
Yeah.
There has been some things that's happened through the years of our ministry that one night during a Sunday night worship, we had a lady come in drunk that came barreling in screaming at Robby. And that was years and years ago.
Yeah.
And so there's been things like that. But I just trust the Lord. I just trust He's going to protect us. And, of course, we have security in place.
Right.
And they're very vigilant with that. And so I just trust that they're doing their jobs. I know Robby's been on a lot of mission trips. But Josh's passion is the mission field.
Right.
And so I don't know if he shared this with you or not, but when he was a senior in high school, Robby and he was dealing with, was God calling him permanently to the mission field? Or was he calling him to take short-time, be on staff, taking mission teams for short-term missions trips? And so we knew the only way that he would know that is for him to go to the mission field. So Robby and I sent him and one other guy for 6 weeks. And he was 18.
Wow.
6 weeks. He went to China. He went to India. He went to Nepal. And he went to Thailand. 6 weeks. Him at the young age. And we just had to trust. We had people at each of those countries that he would connect with. But that's when I knew that's the call God had in his life. And I just had to trust the Lord. Here's the truth of the matter. Josh is only borrowed to us. He belongs to the Lord. Tiffany's only borrowed to us. She belongs to the Lord. So if God calls them to that, whatever ministry it is, I have to be obedient and just say, I'm going to pray for you and I'm going to trust this is what God's called you to do.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And that was one, when you bring up certain ministries, like the podcast thing, when I saw the people doing it, I was also thinking, I was like, man, I like to talk and talk with people, and, I want to make an impact as well for the Lord, and but I was also so nervous about it too. I was kind of like Moses. I was like, am I going to stutter so bad that I'm not going to know what to say and all that, but fortunately the Lord gave me guidance through, I was just praying, and, there's other people that have done it.
Right.
I could ask them questions, or I could ask, I think one of the questions I asked was like, is it cheating to have notes? I think I legit said that,
Yeah.
And they're like,
and
well,
that's
of course
being
not.
wise.
They're
that's
like, of course
being
not.
Wise. And you're doing a fantastic job, Charlie.
Thank you.
And you're doing something that we can't do, because you're speaking to your generation. And, your generation is looking for leadership.
They are.
And they're looking for truth.
Yeah. And that was one thing that, so I've watched the trailer, I don't know how many times, but we're going to go see Jesus Revolution, a group of us. We're going to go see it on Sunday. And the trailer, it says, that in the 70s, they were, this generation, I guess it was my age, maybe a little older, college maybe, they're saying, they're searching for truth, but all in the wrong places.
Right.
And, that's, that was in the 70s. Well, they're doing the exact same thing now. Nothing's changed in that aspect. Maybe some of the ways that they're being reached by the world's changed, but now, social media is obviously a big thing, but it hasn't changed.
Right.
That was one thing that was like, man, things have really they have not changed much at all. That people say, oh, this changed it. No, look,
it's the same tactics. The enemy uses the same tactics. It may be a different look to it, but it's still the same tactics.
It might have the same outer cover or the different outer cover, but it's on the inside. It's the same.
Same thing. Mm-hmm. You're correct.
Yeah.
You're correct.
So I know, have you been, if you've been on some missions before, was there a time where you were, afraid for your safety at some point, if you've been on missions?
The only time that I would not say I was afraid, but I was uncomfortable, is a trip that we went to India. Mm. And India is a different place.
Oh, yeah.
It's a very... it's chaos on steroids is the best way I know to describe it. And we were out in the marketplace, and we had gone into one of the little shops there, and we had people driving up, jumping out of their cars. Ooh, Americans! I was very uncomfortable.
Yeah,
but I don't know that I could ever say I've ever been scared.
Well, that's good. I'm glad,
Yeah.
But yeah, that would kind of, I don't know, that would kind of unnerve me a little bit, I guess, if I saw people just jumping out of the cars. I mean, I understand it though, because we're different, and we have different ways of acting, and they want to see what we're about.
Right.
But it's easy. Don't be jumping out of your car.
Right.
We'll get to you.
It was a little unnerving.
Yeah.
But
yeah. I would get it. Yeah. I mean.
But then you see the ministry that takes place there, and you just wipe that away.
And my cousin Daltrey, actually, he's in Honduras right now.
Oh wow!
And I think he's going to be there for 3 months, I believe. And he was part of the operation, the Christmas Child, shoeboxes or whatever, and went down there. And I've seen videos of him dancing with the kids and stuff. It's it just that's, and it makes you so proud, because that's your family right there.
Right.
Going I mean, how far is Honduras from here? 4,000? It's a long way from here. And I know that his family, they were praying, we were praying for him, and because for him, because what had happened was, he came down here, still lives in Alabama, so he came over here to visit us for Christmas, and then he was going to pretty much, in about a week or two, go down there. And what had happened, he got back, and his house was his apartment was flooded, because, how it was so cold.
Right.
The hot water heaters are bursting and busted, and obviously he did not know it had busted. But, even through all that, he still went down there.
Right.
And called what the Lord, did what the Lord wanted him to do. He went down there, and, and I think everything's good there now. He hasn't really told me, but, it just... I would be like, oh my gosh, I got to get this sorted before I got to go down there, you know, because, I mean, all of his stuff and all was messed up and, soaked, but he still went down there even after all that, and he's having an absolute blast from what I can tell down there with those kids.
Well, once you go on a mission trip, it'll change your life forever.
I'm thinking about going to the ones in Savannah.
Oh, good.
Because I've been to Savannah, and so I'm like, but, you know, they I think they could use a little bit of Northside, you know, and use the Lord down up there.
Over there.
I say down there a lot because, like, you know, talking about Florida, but it's like, you know, up there compared to here.
Kind of over up.
Yeah. So, and then we're going to go into some questions about the youth, and we'll maybe talk about D now as well as the Bible conference a little bit.
Okay.
So when you, you know, look at our youth, do you see, like, for me, it's about a little bit 50-50, but, you know, like, do you see hope, or are you kind of worried about the future when it comes to, you know, the future?
Oh, I completely see hope.
Mm-hmm.
I see nothing but hope. Just great kids, and just seeing how that they love the Lord. You know, there's nothing sweeter to me to sit and look over in second service, and we have several rows of students sitting there. Mm-hmm. And everything that Robby speaks, they're sitting taking notes, and writing, just so, and that is so encouraging to me. And, you know, taking notes means they're intaking. Mm-hmm. And so I am encouraged. I am encouraged that I see you guys inviting people to be in church with you, that you don't want to keep your salvation inside of you, but you want to share what God's done in your life. Mm-hmm. And so I'm encouraged.
And, like, I mean, it's just, and the opportunities that, you know, for people that are listening that don't have a church and they're in the area, the opportunities that Northside can give you in terms of, like, and trust me, it's not just, you know, sitting in a pew and, like, listening to a sermon, I promise you. And even then, you will be entertained, I promise you. It will not be boring. You will be excited to sit there and listen. But, you know, just the activities that we've been able to do, like, with D Now and everything, that was an absolute blast, you know, coming up here and doing that. And this is probably the only time I've seen kids run like crazy into the church. Yeah. So, like, you should have seen, I think it was the high school boys, you know, of course it was their last year, so they really wanted to just try to win it, right? Right. Well, like, we had to get, like, off to the side because you could just hear them coming down the hallway. Like, it sounded like a stampede just coming down the hall. Right. But, you know, they enjoy it, and I know I did, you know. Right.
But the bonding of that weekend for y'all is just, you can't replace that. Those are the relationships in weekends like D Now that you make those connections, those relationships that you're going to be dependent on for many years.
Exactly right. And, you know, like, even through this podcast, I've made friendships as well. You know, like I said, there was people that I was asking for advice when it came to just starting it. And they gave me some, like, really solid advice. You know, they were like, it doesn't matter if you stutter, just keep going. I'm like, well, you know, and it was just some other things like that. And they've been an absolute blessing. Like, and some of them have been doing this for almost a year now. But yeah, they'll, you know, they take me on, and I'll be on their podcast, and we'll just kind of swap me on each other's podcast and all that, and we'll just have a fun time doing it, you know. Right. When it comes to the Bible conference, though, and Pastor Robby was just at the one, was it Hazelhurst?
Hazelhurst. Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh. So it was funny to me because I was looking at, like you say, the roster of pastors, and pretty much there was pretty much every single one except maybe I think Fred. Wasn't on that one, but then you had two extras. It was like, man, they just went, all the ones that were at Northside, they just went over there.
Just took it over there. Right.
And just kept the momentum going. Right.
But and the Lord's doing great things over there. They've had many saved, and
that's awesome.
Just, it's a sweet spirit over there.
But the Bible conference, though, like, just to watch, you know, like, I mean, I'll be honest, that was the first time I'd been up to the altar, like, in the sanctuary, you know, was this past weekend. I'd never done that. You know, probably just maybe out of fear. I'm not really sure. But, you know, that was just a monument. I guess, I don't know, like, the right word. Maybe monumental thing, or, like, a step, you know, like a further step in the right direction. But, you know, there was just something about it. I don't know, just, like, the atmosphere at the time that, you know, you trust, like, just go up there. It's fine, you know. Just go up there. And, you know, and also me and Ethan, Stoudemire, you know, I don't know if you've noticed, but he sticks to me and my friends like glue. And we love it so much.
That's awesome.
But we went up there and prayed for one of our friends that went up there. And, like, you know, that was so sweet just to go up there. And, you know, we had the opportunity to do it.
Right.
You know, and just to watch everybody, just to worship too, that was so fun.
Well, the Lord loves when you come to His altar and just kneel before Him and just lay whatever it is at the altar and just seeking Him.
Mm-hmm. And we had, and I don't know about, I couldn't say this for everybody, but my favorite part about Dino, I would say, like, that was at the church was the singing part in the choir. Because I've been in a choir before. That was
incredible.
That was so fun.
That was incredible.
And it was funny because I could see you and Pastor Robby, like, through a small little gap, like, because I was standing at the top on the first service, and I kind of was like, oh, there, it was fun. It was funny because I would, like, look over there every now and then, and y'all were getting with it, y'all were loving it, and I was too. But that was really, really fun. And just to go back and look at it and seeing us take up the entire stage
was awesome.
Was so cool. And not to mention Daniel too. I love watching Daniel. And I'll interview him at some point probably as well. But I love watching him because he just gets really into.
He does. He's just passionate about what God's called him to do.
He is, and awesome. I absolutely love it. And they had, I think it was during that time, maybe the week before when they did the thing at VSU. Like there was, prayer for VSU. And that was not just the only place, of course. Asbury, that was the most popular one that people know about. But so VSU there, and there's places like in Tennessee, Oklahoma. Like and it's still happening. It's just not being covered because you got to look for it. We just
see God's doing something right now. He just is doing something unique, and just He's just looking for people that's seeking Him.
Mm-hmm. And I was telling this to somebody the other day. I was like, I'm so thankful that the Lord, allowed me to come to Him and, I could say a year ago, so I could notice all this. Like, because I don't want to miss all this. This is awesome to see.
Well, you see the joy in serving the Lord. Mm-hmm. I mean, being a Christian, there is joy in that. And a joy that the world cannot give you.
Nope, not at all.
It is a different type of joy. I mean, it's true joy.
Mm-hmm. You hit the nail on the head. I couldn't say, there's no better way to say it. But as a teen at today's time, what advice would you give to me and others as we're going throughout this world, whether it be if they're homeschooled, whether they're in public school like I am? What would you say?
I've got 2 scriptures that God has really used in my life, and I think would be very encouraging for your generation. And the first one is Daniel chapter 1, verse number 8. Mm-hmm. And the scripture said, for Daniel purposed in his heart. That's the key. Purposed in his heart so he would not defile himself. So he purposed in his heart. He set in his heart what he was and was not going to do. Mm-hmm. And he purposed in his heart that he was going to serve the Lord regardless. With whatever the world was going to bring his way. And that Nebuchadnezzar wanted him to bow down on the plains of Dura, and he's like, I'm not going to do it. Why was he able to say that? It's because he purposed in his heart, I am not going to be defiled. So I would say to your generation, the first thing I would tell you is you set things in your heart. Mm-hmm. Purpose your heart of how you're going to respond to whatever situations, because y'all have challenges. You have many things coming your way. And it's easy to fall into those if you don't have a standard already set. Mm-hmm. And so I would tell you, and that word heart means, a lot of times you don't realize the fullness of what that word is. It's your will, it's your mind, and it's your will, your mind, and your feelings. So when you hear that, purpose in your heart, purpose your will, purpose your feelings, purpose your mind to the things of the Lord. And so when the things of the world comes your way, you've already set how you're going to respond. Mm-hmm. Here's the thing I tell people all the time. If you wait till the enemy attacks you, it's too late. Mm-hmm. So you already need to know how you're going to respond before the enemy even comes your way.
And that was just, in a way, that was said in the youth, Landon was hitting on it. He said, in a way, like, store up scripture, memorize scripture before the battle comes. So that way you can you can use that as your weapon.
So purpose in your heart. What are you going to do? Mm-hmm. What purpose is in your heart? And then the second scripture is Proverbs 4:23. And that scripture says, guard your heart with all diligence, for out of it springs the things of life. Mm-hmm. So in other words, we just saw you got a purpose in your heart. But know this, you got to guard what you've purposed, because what's in your heart is what's going to come out.
That's good. Mm.
So if you're putting the things of the world in your life, guess what's coming out? Things of the world.
Yeah.
But if you're putting the things of the Lord, it can't help but come out. So those would be the two things that I would tell your generation. And another word that you could place with purpose in your heart, set convictions. Mm-hmm. What are convictions in your life? What convictions have you set in your life? You know, some convictions of, I'm going to be in the house of the Lord. I'm going to read my word. I'm going to study God's word. I'm going to be obedient to God's word. When things come my way, this is what I'm going to set. What are your convictions? So I would tell you, your generation, just as much as my generation, it's no different. Mm-hmm. It's the same message. What have you purposed? And then what you've purposed, you got to guard.
Right. And, you know, you have to set those boundaries, especially like in public school now. Like, you know, there's countless times, even today, I can think of, I won't name them, but, you know, I could think of times and I'm like, I need to get away from that, you know, like, or whatever it may be, because, I mean, you can easily get dragged into that.
Right.
You know, and that's why I love going to, like, FCA in the mornings, you know, because I wish we had FCA every morning, because that really gets you, you know, just set for the morning, you know, right. You worship with other kids and everything. But unfortunately, that's not the case. But
when you've purposed and guarded your heart, mm-hmm. you're different, Charlie. When you think about people that you've seen in your life, mm-hmm. that you know that are very strong Christians, they stand out. You can name names. You can name who they are. And why? Because they've said in their life, this is who I'm going to be. And that's what you want to be, is you want to be a difference maker. Mm-hmm. You know, it's not always about what we say to people, but it's how we're living, mm-hmm. that they see there's something different about you. And maybe they might make fun of you for a little while, but when things get rough in their life, guess who they're coming to? They're going to come to see you, that they see something's different in you, and there's joy in your life.
That's good. Wow.
And so that's what I would say to your generation is set those guidelines. Mm-hmm. Set what you are and are not going to do, and guard that.
Mm-hmm. And because, you know, you mentioned about all the people that you could name. Oh, my gosh, there's so many people, especially, you know, coming to Northside and meeting all these new people. I could name so many people. And, like, some of them I've even interviewed, you know. Like, one that really stands out when you said that was Mikey. My mm-hmm. gosh, you know, I remember I met him and, you know, I was just kind of observing, you know, like coming into Wednesday night and everything. I think we did like a Bible trivia or something, and he was just nailing it. And, you know, that was one thing that was just like, I had never seen, you know, a kid of my age know the Bible so well. And, you know, that was just one thing. I was like, man, that is, you know, he's different. Like, he's going to go and serve the Lord in such a mighty way. And right. Another one was my friend Stephen. Right. You know, because he was he was the one that the Lord used as kind of like the spark, you know, that led me to Christ. And because he started, I think it was Halloween one night or something. I don't remember what we were doing, and he was just talking about his faith, like, you know, just he was just outright just talking about it, and it was just like, I've never heard a kid talk about it like this ever, you know.
And look what God did. I know. It's just that one, and. There is so many of you guys that's in our student ministry that mm-hmm. if you really set that in your life, can you imagine the difference that you can make in Lowndes County High School? And y'all are making a difference. Mm-hmm. You are making a difference.
Yeah, and, you know, I mean, it's just, you know, such a great thing. And also, you know, I know some people, they kind of like, this was goods and bads to our, you know, technology and stuff. But I think if you use it in the right way, like what we're doing now, having these conversations, it can be used, you know, and the Lord uses it all the time. But, you know, you just have to figure out how He wants you to use it.
Right.
Like, you know, one thing that I did, because I have somebody in one of my classes, I just could not, like, pull them to the side or get away from everybody else and just pull them to the side to talk to them about the gospel. I just didn't have the time because, you know, of how our class is structured. And so I was like, well, how am I going to do this? Because the Lord, I feel like He really wants me to tell this kid, maybe just plant the seed. I don't, you know, who knows what He wants me to do with this. But, so I just pulled my phone out and videoed myself speaking, and then I sent it to him. I mean, and 30 years ago, I wouldn't be able to do that, you know, and just send him a message. I would have had to gone and talk to him in person,
right,
with all those people around, because I know that eventually, I hope one day I'll be able to speak to more than one person at the time, but for now, we're going to start with one, and then,
and you're doing exactly what God's called you to do right now, and so I would tell you, Charlie, just be faithful in that. Mm-hmm. You're doing a fantastic job, and you're making a difference.
Thank you so much. That means so much, just because, sometimes you don't know, the enemy may try to put thoughts into your head. If you're trying to do something for the Lord that, oh my gosh, that's not doing anything. Don't believe that, because I promise you it is.
Right.
If he wants you to do it, it's going to make a difference.
Right. Well, if you speak God's word, he says, my word will never return void.
So, and then for this last one for the youth, how do you think, and you kind of hit on it earlier, but what are some ways that that our youth could help Northside grow, you think?
Just in sharing your faith, invite.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing. If students are going to come to Northside, it's because y'all have invited them. Mm-hmm. It's not because adults have. Now, they may be some students come because parents come. But we have seen all through our years of ministry how it's the students that lead families to church. Mm-hmm. It's that one invite of somebody in their student ministry invites somebody to come to a D-Now or come to a Wednesday night or come to church on Sunday mornings. They get connected, then parents come. Mm-hmm. And it's just that building effect. So you can reach your generations that we can't do.
Exactly. And, Drew Faircloth was actually the one that invited me to come to Wednesday night, and I've been doing it ever since. And I'm so thankful that he did because of the amount of people that I'll be able to meet, just through Wednesday night and just coming to Northside, period. And, since we've started going, we've had people ask us, what church do you go to? I'm trying to look for one, and, we tell them, hey, Northside, it might be a little far for you, but trust me, it's worth it. Come, because we're 30 minutes. It's 30 minutes away from us.
Think about it. Just from your testimony, they know to ask you what church to go to. Mm-hmm. So that's telling you, Charlie, that you're living your faith out. Because if they didn't see that in you, they would not ask, that you would not be the person they would come to say, what church do you go to? Mm-hmm. So they see that in you.
Yeah. And, even though, and I've said this before, even though it's 30 minutes, it's a good 30 minutes out of the way, to go to Northside. When you find the church that you really connect with, you will take that extra 30 minutes, that extra gas to go to that church, wherever it may be. And, we actually, my grandma actually, not the one still living, but the one that has passed away, she actually went here, and then the one that is still living went here, and they had actually, talked a few times, and they, they were talking about me and family and all, and so that's how we kind of just heard about Northside, and then we never joined, never went, and then Baines, he said, I've been going to Northside, and then I was like, yeah, sure, I'll go. I think he invited me, or no, I think we were just gonna go, I think, because we were like, let's go on Good Friday, how about that, and I think it's probably part of that spark as well. The Lord was using it, and we went. And Baines had texted me, because he was good at following up, afterwards. And which, by the way, if you invite somebody to church, do that. Please follow up, because that'll show that you care.
Right, exactly.
But he was like, it was so much more fun having you there, because he hadn't had a friend to go with him. So he was with his parents, and it was. I think he enjoyed it more since I was there with him. Kind of joke around a little bit, whatever. And, and one thing that also, too, that had happened was when they did communion. Everybody on my row could do communion, except for me. And I was like, oh, my gosh, dang, this don't feel right. I want to do that, too,
Right.
And so then the next communion we had, which was right at the New Year, I believe, right? Mm-hmm. I was able to do it, and that felt so good. I was like, yeah.
Yeah, that first communion special,
mm-hmm.
Isn't it?
It was. And just the fact that it was right at I think it might have been the first one of the new year.
It
was, yeah.
Is.
And, just to, but able to do that, because Baines had texted me. At first, I was like, he was like, it's your first communion. I was like, wait. I was like, oh, yeah, it is. It just dawned on me when I woke up that morning. And that was, so special. And, I've been a lot of first, that the Lord's allowed me to have, like the first communion, first podcast episode, whatever it may be.
Right.
And he's, just, and whether, even if it's not like in terms of a biblical thing, there's been a lot of firsts that he's just allowed me to do in terms of like, just say like clean fun, if you will, like going to a concert. I went to a concert, last year, with Baines and them, which they've been, and I've talked about it before, an absolute blessing to have as friends. I will say everybody needs a Stephen and a Baines. I mean, at least in my mind, you need a Stephen and a Baines. You need somebody who will, Baines will be the one that, he'll tell you that it's like, I don't know, you might not want to be doing that. He'll tell you straight up. He'll do that. He's really good at that.
Right.
And I'm so thankful that he does.
Right. Well, it just is thrilling to us, but though, Charlie, to see, for you as example of you being a newly born-again Christian, but what God's already doing in your life. Mm-hmm. And there's been people that's been saved for years that's doing absolutely nothing for the Lord. So it's so encouraging to us to see that you're stepping out in faith, mm-hmm. and you desire to be used by the Lord.
I think it was Fred, he hit on it, that, faith is action.
Right.
And I love that so much, because I do think, and I won't name names, but there is a few people at my school, at least, they say that they're Christian and all, but they don't do anything with it. Like,
right.
They don't go and tell people about it, or, whatever it may be. I get that's difficult. Like, I'm not saying it's so oh my gosh, it's so easy. I know it's hard.
Right.
But, like, do that. Like, the good news. Like, what the Lord's done for you. So share it with other people. Because there's plenty of people at Lowndes, at wherever you may be, that need to hear the word as well. And, that kind of leads me into a question. It's not even on here, but I came up with it up here.
Okay.
Is, in terms of, like, with that fear, how would you tell people, to kind of not really get over that fear, but help them with that, because that is a daunting thing to go into.
Fear of sharing the gospel?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, until that you have that comfort of being able to verbalize, the greatest testimony you can have is living your life in mm-hmm. front of people. And a lot of times that's a greater testimony than what words you can share. And just pray that the Lord opens doors for you to be able to share. And here's the thing. Until you do it, you're going to be fearful. Mm-hmm. So the more you do, and just like you with your podcast, I'm sure the first podcast you did, you were a nervous wreck. Mm-hmm. But each one you do, it just gets a little better and a little better and a little better as far as the fear and the nerves. Mm-hmm. And so sharing the gospel is the very same way. It's just, don't let the enemy say in your mind, you're going to mess this up. Mm-hmm. Because you can never mess up what God's done in your life. Mm-hmm. And sharing your testimony of how you got saved and what God's done in your life can never be wrong.
Nope. And they can't disprove that.
And so that helps also in fear of knowing that can never be wrong. Fear is things of unknowns. Mm-hmm. But that's a known. That's a known thing.
That's good. Man, I know I keep saying it. I could not have said that better than myself. That is good. But, is there any final thoughts that you may have? Words of encouragement, whatever that may be.
I would just tell you to keep serving the Lord and keep seeking the Lord and keep the passion you have for the Lord. And because you see that passion in you, Charlie, of you're wanting to know more of the Lord, know more about the Lord, grow more in the Lord. And I would tell you, never lose that passion.
Because it can happen.
Never lose that passion.
Isn't it like a weird statistic? I don't remember the number, but it said a lot of people they stop pursuing their faith after high school. After they graduate.
Because we've seen this through years of ministry. What happens is, high school. A lot of kids are in church because families are mm-hmm. in church and parents are going to go to church, and so you're through that, and then you get to college and you're on your own, mm-hmm. and that's where, going back to what I shared earlier, you got a purpose in your heart, and you got to guard that in your heart. That it doesn't matter if I'm in the 11th grade in high school in student ministry, or if I'm a junior in college on my own. It should not be different.
Nope.
But we see that because what happens is people begin pursuing their career more than pursuing the Lord.
Yeah.
So he's always got to be first.
Yeah. Always.
Always.
Well, I mean, that's all about all the questions I got, but I just want to say thank you so much for
Well, it's an honor
on.
that you asked me to
Of course.
come. Thank you so much.
And I know that people are really going to love this episode because I know I enjoyed the conversation.
Well, praise the Lord.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And I know he's going to do great things with this. The Lord's going to do awesome things. And, and who knows, maybe he'll be able to reach a new target audience with you being the first female. I hope he does. I pray that he does, that he can reach more people with it than in the past. Because I can see what countries the Lord takes it, and just, believe it or not, it's not all in the U.S. It's places like Japan, Britain, Mexico. There's a few
awesome.
other, and that blows my mind. It's like there's, my voice, the Lord's taking it and putting it into different ages, but, areas around the world.
Know this, Pastor Robby and I pray for you diligently, that you continue serving the Lord and getting His Word out.
Thank you. Both of you.
Yes.
Thank you so much. And it has been a pleasure and honor to have you on.
Well, thank you.
Of course.